Welcome to Underwater CSI International Revealed. I'm Senior Investigator Rich Morin, and with me, as always,
I'm Senior Investigator Ed Myron. How's
and Ed, tell
everything
us a little
today,
bit about
Rich?
tonight's show.
Well, it's this is going to be a quite interesting and quite exciting show. Um, we're going to discuss a case that's 30 years old, right? I
Yep,
mean, it's over 30 years old, and there's a lot of twists and turns regarding this case, cover up, um, uh, evidence that was suppressed. So it's
for 30
gonna,
years that just came out the other day.
yeah. So
Yep, that's
you've
why.
got a lot of facts and interesting, like you just said, interesting stuff that just came out just a few days ago. And this is about the flight 800 that was that crashed. Um, yeah, it's over 30 years old.
Yeah, July
So
17th was actually the 30th anniversary of TWA Flight 800. Um, I was directly involved with this, so it means a lot to me. Some of the things that I've reported in the past, I've had a lot of naysayers like, that didn't happen, that didn't happen.
right,
When you're directly involved instead of, an armchair quarterback, you see things a little bit different. But we've had some breaking news. So much has happened in the last week, week and a half. I mean, I've gotten so much documentation. I've got the final report from the FAA, which didn't tell me a whole lot. I've got another report um, that I just received in yesterday, 12 pages. There's also a 400 page. I did not get that in yet, but I got a lot of the highlights on that. That Judicial Watch, which is a government watch organization
right.
headed up by Tom Fitton, does a great job, and he files FOIAs and lawsuits against government agencies in order to obtain the truth. And he
Right.
is the one who just got a hold of the FBI files that have been suppressed for 30 years, and huge, huge news on that.
Yeah.
Um,
So do you think one of the reasons why so much of this information is now coming out because of the anniversary and because of any um time frame where it's basically run out, or
exactly.
why
Yeah,
do you
a
think
lot
it's
of it, gag orders,
right?
non-disclosure agreements,
Okay.
have all just recently expired on a lot of this stuff. So that's why so much of it has come out just within the last week, week and a half. I've been going crazy, just
I'm sure you have.
just reading it all, actually, um, you know, being out there, it's it was a different situation. But
Right.
anyway,
Well, yeah, I mean, you were directly involved.
yeah, I'll
So
just give you a quick brief of what happened. I got a phone call from the New York State Police head of the dive team, and their dive team was a little lacking as far as training goes and equipment and stuff like that. And he gave me a call and he says, "Rich," he says, "you've heard about TWA Flight 800?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." He says, "Well, we're going out there." And he says, "But a couple things." He says, "None of us know anything about deep diving, and we've never used dry suits before.
right.
So you got 2 days to teach us how to use a dry suit and tell us about deep diving in a pool." Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that's just not the way to do it. It's
Right.
like, that's it. That's what you got. We're in 2 days. We're on day three. We're heading out there with or without you. All right.
Right.
So it's going to happen. We'd rather have it with you, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, this was, an emergency. Now, not only that, but we had to get the dry suits. Um, all everything had to be cut. Valves had to be installed. We had seals to trim. I mean, it was
Right.
such a busy 48 hours. It was just mind blowing
Right.
like that, and then
Yeah.
trying to instruct people in a pool environment and then go over deep diving procedures because we're going to be looking at depths up to 160. Um, So it was rough. It was a rough
Yeah.
time, and that's how we got involved. All
Right.
right,
And
from
it's
that
and
point.
it's like you said, I mean, um and people that listening may not understand, dry suit is much more involved. Like you said, you're cutting wrist seals so it fits that person.
Right.
You're cutting the neck seals so it fits that person. It's not just a
And that
simple.
takes time. I mean, we're not
Right.
talking about one or two. We're talking 70 divers.
Right.
All right, in the pool and dry suit fittings,
Right.
right? And learning about deep diving,
Right.
right? As quick as we could possibly put information
Get it
into a,
done. Right.
condense it into what would hopefully be, a safe operation.
Right. And safety is paramount.
Right.
That's the key to it all, is the
Right.
safety aspect of it.
Now, I mean, it, and this was just strictly for victim recoveries. The Navy was there to do wreckage recoveries. All right. So, um, and unfortunately, it took over 2 months to try to find all the people and bits and pieces and stuff scattered over 2 miles along the ocean bottom.
Mm.
So it was a rough situation.
Yeah. So it was uh, not only dry suit, but deep, but then all that, just the intensity of the search every day going
Right.
on.
And I'll just give you a little heads up. On site, okay, coming from the Navy recovery vessel, um, day one, there was a huge argument going on that was overheard on the vessel that was there for victim recovery.
Mm.
Okay. So it was overheard. And scuttlebutt was that it was the CIA that showed up on scene and was kicking the NTSB off site, and taking charge of the situation. Right. We now have reports that it was actually the FBI and not the CIA. But I think the CIA had involvement in it anyway, as we're going
Right.
to discuss here in a little bit.
Right.
All right. So somehow they were there involved. Um, so from the vessel that was there to do the victim recovery, it's like, man, good thing the NTSB doesn't have weapons because I think there would have been a gunfight. You know, I mean,
Like
they're
at the
telling
OK
the
Corral.
you're telling the professionals, that are trained in aircraft emergencies, and investigation work, and basically turning it over to people that are not qualified.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why? You
Yeah.
know, just answer the question why.
Right.
It's so that right there raises a red flag. Okay, this is before any of this stuff came out from the past week. Also, um, a friend of mine who's unfortunately has passed away, was working for Army intelligence at the Pentagon at
Mm.
the time. And off the record, when he was talking to me, he said, "We lost two Stinger missiles in the Middle East, and we decided instead of intervening, we were going to see if we could catch a terrorist cell, much larger, and we tracked them. We tracked them across Europe and into Canada, and eventually we lost them in Rutland, Vermont, of all
Yeah.
places." And
Now,
I say that because I lived there once for 15 years. I was there. I had a dive center over there, but lost them in Rutland, Vermont. And
lost.
a
We
couple days
lost.
later, we've got we've got TWA blowing up out of the sky.
Right.
Right. So that's that's kind of what I had heard, from the beginning in 1996, as far as what had happened. Um, but anyway,
Well,
so
over
it
the
happened on
years.
July. What's that, bud?
So over the years, um, and as long as I've known you, you've really stayed steadfast in what you believed, what what you heard, what you saw. You've really steadfast behind all that information, and now you have information that supports much, if not all, of what you really believed happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It still leaves you know room for speculation. Um, but new stuff is coming out. It's just incredible. That 400 pages has not all been gone through yet, but what has been gone through is just freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but and I'm going to tell you some other stuff too that was going on the recovery vessel, as far as some of the damaged parts that were coming up on that, that was witnessed. So, but anyway, so the accident occurred on July 17, 1996. TWA Flight 800 just departed JFK, heading toward Paris. Um,
So full flight, international full flight.
yeah, but it wasn't full as far as passengers go, though. It had a total of 230 souls on board,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was
Okay.
passengers and crew.
Okay.
All right, so the plane was, half full.
Half full. Yep.
Um, yeah, but anyway, the plane climbed 13,800 feet, and then there was an explosion. So what happened over the years is that the NTSB had reported that it was faulty insulation on some wiring that was by the fuel tank in the center of the plane, the center fuel tank. Um, and fumes had built up, and then there was an arc in the wires, and it ignited the fumes and blew the plane apart. It just nothing ever sounded right to me. I
Right.
mean, the fumes escaping through the fuel tank, first of all. Um, Supposedly there was only 50 gallons of fuel in the center fuel tank. Years ago, I worked for TWA back in the 1970s. After that, I worked for Lockheed Aircraft. And one of the things that we did at Lockheed is we fueled 747s
Right.
every day. We were contracted out to Northwest Orient. And every single day, and other airlines also, for their cargo flights, we were fueling aircraft. And I don't ever remember not one time where we didn't have fuel in the center fuel tank.
Yeah.
Now, the majority of fuel is going to be in the wings because the wings are going to create lift, and basically it's going to help, because the fuel is very heavy. So you don't want
Right.
to put it all in the fuselage itself, because then the wings are doing a lot of work and, expanding or stretching a whole lot. Um, so the majority of the fuel, or a lot of the fuel, is going to be in the wings. But I just don't remember. And I've unfortunately, way back when TWA was still in business, they they weren't required to release anything to civilians, or to underwater CSI. We weren't a government agency, so they weren't required, because I put in a submission for um, I wanted the final fuel load ticket. All
Mm.
right, how much
Okay.
fuel and how it was going to be loaded. How many pounds, which goes by pounds.
Right.
How many pounds go in all the different tanks. All right, because you get a load sheet as the person is fueling, and so you fuel it accordingly. And you've got toggle switches up and underneath the wing that you're operating to, open up
Distribute. Yep.
valves and turn
Yep.
pumps on, et cetera, to move fuel around. But the plane's got to be balanced. That's going to be key. But again, in all the years that I fueled 747s, I don't ever remember having one go out with an empty or near empty center fuel tank.
Yeah.
So that kind of, and there's nowhere in the reports about anybody securing the final fuel load order. All right. There's nowhere. I haven't been able to find it anywhere. And I can't believe that that wouldn't have been one of the big things,
Right.
you
And
know?
that's mandatory, right? When you used to fill them, or fill these planes, that's a mandatory order, right? To
Correct.
that um basically follows the process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's it's great, crazy story, overall. But um anyway, so the FBI shows up. They had um, they went ahead and replaced the NTSB, which overall had 19 different teams on this plane crash,
Right.
right? This explosion, right? For an investigative team. I got to put my glasses on because I can't see what I'm reading here. All right, the debris was scattered along the ocean bottom, approximately 8 miles off the shoreline of Long Island. Approximately 12 minutes into the flight itself is when it disappeared.
Right.
The wreckage recovery alone took 9 months. The victim recovery took a little over two. And it got to the end where and it's kind of bad to say, but you're recovering bits and pieces.
Right.
But there was another piece of information that was released this past week that I found absolutely intriguing. Um, that never made it onto the NTSB report because the FBI went ahead and squashed that, hid it for a while also. But a lot of not a lot, but some of the victims that were seated up in that area, their bodies had foreign matter that were lodged in their tissue,
Mm.
not from the
Not from the
aircraft.
right.
Yeah. Um, the other thing is there were no swab tests that were being done for checking for possible uh,
Any kind
explosive
of
device.
residue. Right.
Yeah, the residue of explosive device.
Right.
So anyway, crazy, 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 crazy. All right. Um, just gonna flip around here.
Yeah. Well, it only gets crazier.
So TWA 800 Project launched a website and documentary to argue that the official investigation had been handled incorrectly 17 years prior. All right. So this was 17 years after the initial investigation. And one of the reasons that it took so long is because everybody was scared, as far as what was going to happen to them if they started talking about it,
Sure.
because the FBI was poo pooing everything. Um, according to the website, an investigator on the case was extremely unhappy with the investigation. He attempted to report this to his superiors, but was threatened with being kicked off the investigation and worse, basically termination. The
Right.
website says that the whistleblowers from the NTSB, TWA, and Airline Pilots Association who submitted evidence for the documentary could not come forward until they had retired and were able to avoid retaliation. So
Yeah.
again, I mean, you're being threatened for trying to do your job and trying to figure out what really happened.
Right.
So
So
a
again,
petition for reconsideration or modification of NTSB's findings, especially when it comes to probable cause, can be filed by a party to the investigation or a person with direct interest. The petition must be based rather on new evidence or be able to show that the board's findings were not correct. All right, we've got a little bit of both. The petition claims that new analysis and evidence demonstrates that a detonation of high velocity explosion caused the crash. Okay.
again, contrary to what was being said.
Yeah, the new evidence put forward included two new analyses of FAA radar data where it was never reported before.
Yeah.
Okay. 20 new FBI eyewitnesses interview summaries apparently not previously available because these 20 were hell bent on seeing a missile trail,
Right.
or
Right.
trails that went up toward the aircraft itself. All right. Now I've got on the reports here, I've got two conflicting numbers. One has got 755 eyewitnesses total, either saw the explosion or saw a light trail from the surface going up to the aircraft itself. All right. The other one is 736. So roughly the same. We're still looking
Right.
at about 750 eyewitnesses,
Right.
on that. Also, in this new evidence, analysis of spike tooth fractures found in multiple locations and evidence of explosive residue.
Mm.
All right, just like we were talking about.
Right.
The petitioners claim that the radar evidence shows that there was a powerful and sideways projected explosion, which occurred simultaneously with the loss of electrical power. which is not accounted for in the NTSB analysis.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. The petitioners also claim that the witnesses' statements describe the fireworks or streak of light, which they believe is more consistent with high velocity explosion rather than a low velocity fuel air explosion that the NTSB determined. The primary interest here is, of course, that the senior investigator on the case is part of the petition to reopen the investigation. Um, he was assigned to the survival factors specialist on the NTSB's GO team responding to the trash. He claims that the investigation was, um, let's see, where was I here? Claims that let's see, was conducted by the FBI, was improperly conducted because of the FBI involvement. The FBI took control of the investigation and at the start because based on eyewitness accounts, they believed that the aircraft may have been shot down by a missile strike.
Right.
Okay. Which is exactly what the petition is trying to prove.
Right. Right. And now I
All right.
have, and we also have photos
Yeah.
too that we can
Yeah. If you
bring
want
up.
to pop up some of those, and show them while I'm going over this next part.
Yep.
The NTSB allowed the FBI to virtually commandeer the NTSB's investigation, permitting the FBI to determine who would and who would not have access to the evidence.
Yeah.
So the FBI is basically telling the NTSB investigators, all right, that they may or may not have access to the evidence. Now, Judicial Watch also, if you just Google them and then they're on X or you can look on YouTube.
Right.
But as far as the Judicial Watch, they also have an interview with TWA Captain Al Francis, which is a really good interview. It's long; it's like an hour and a half long, but it's really good. And Al had some things in there that that was witnessed from the vessel that was doing victim recoveries, looking over at the naval vessel. All right, witnessed the FBI, which at the time we thought it was the CIA,
Right.
taking a hammer and re-damaging the aircraft before it goes in for assembly.
Right.
All right. Why are you doing that? Why are you damaging parts of the aircraft coming up?
Right.
Okay. And again, no residue testing was done on it. They were using a grease pencil to mark certain parts of the aircraft, right? Which, when it got to shore and was going to be loaded onto a transport vehicle to be taken to the assembly hangar, where all the parts have to be sorted out and tried to figure out where every piece goes, et cetera. Right? These pieces ended up being pressure washed, all right, and loaded onto a different truck, never to be seen again.
Right.
Okay. So this is all new information that's just coming out. So why would the FBI, all right, first of all, damage aircraft parts that are coming out?
Right.
All right. Looking at their schematics out on, I mean, you could see them looking at schematics out there trying to figure
Right.
out stuff and stuff. Why would they pressure wash parts if not to get rid of residue?
Right.
All right. And why are they only picking certain parts to
To go.
disappear,
Right.
to go to wherever they went to?
Right.
All right. But
So
never
you
came
have
back.
parts that are coming back and going to be reassembled, but then you have parts that actually came out but disappeared. So they never got sent back to where they were doing the reassembly.
Exactly. So as a result, from the beginning of the wreckage or slash evidence recovery effort, the FBI and agency with virtually no aviation accident investigation expertise, with an evidence recovery team so inexperienced that I was asked to give them a crash course on the subject several weeks to the investigation. This is from the investigator that got reassigned there, Hank
Right.
Hughes. All right, it's from Hank Hughes. Um, and again, I mean, he's nervous about talking about anything because he was
Right.
threatened with, his job basically,
He's gonna
getting
right.
kicked
He's
off
gonna
that
lose
or
his job.
yeah. Um,
So do you want to, before you start, do you want to take a look at this picture and point out some things in the picture I have up right now?
Yeah, actually, there's some better shot. Some of the other photos.
Okay.
Um, Go through another one there real
Yep.
quick. All right, this is a good one right here.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good
Yeah,
one.
that's actually where the wing goes right there. That
Yeah,
big hole that you see
right
right
here.
there. Yeah, that's where the wing attached right there. Now you would think that if there was a center fuel tank explosion, that whole part of the plane would be blown outwards.
Right.
All right. And
Yep.
basically, it looks like the only thing that's missing is where the wing goes through.
Yep.
And the center fuel tank is actually considered part of the wing. All right. But it's in the center of the fuselage. It's just where it's stationed, but it's actually part of the wing assembly. So that always worried me. Now, if you look just aft of that, toward just behind it a little bit,
Yep. Right here.
there's a whole lot of damage right there,
Yep.
and that basically would go toward more of a missile strike because it's heat seeking. It's going after the exhaust trail, which would be just behind the wing, where because the engines are underneath it.
Right.
So that looks like more like a type of an explosion that would occur with a missile strike.
Would. Right.
Right. And again, if they're talking about fumes being built up, et cetera, I mean, I just don't know why that whole part of the aircraft, especially above the wing section there,
Yeah,
uh,
this whole section,
yeah,
you would have thought.
isn't blown out. You could see the plane actually broke in half. You can see,
Yep. Right here.
yeah, you have going up there, and also the cockpit is gone.
Yep.
That fell off. But yeah, so
Well,
that's a biggie right there.
here's the FBI.
Yeah. So again, and this is forward of the wing.
Right.
So it's man, I just have a hard time believing the official NTSB report, especially after this past week and a half.
Right.
I've always had a hard time because just too much stuff was going on.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, the FBI had virtually complete control of the critical initial evidence handling phase, even to the point of refusing NTSB investigators access to key wreckage and other hard evidence. And
Hmm.
again, they went ahead and they secured a lot of that wreckage. Yeah, look at that picture right there. You can see aft now behind the wing.
Yep.
You know how much damage is back there
Yeah.
from an explosion.
Yeah.
The fuel tank's not there.
Yeah.
Right, the fuel tank's up where the gentleman's standing.
Yeah. Fuel tank would be right through here.
Yeah, right in there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, in the center of the aircraft.
Yeah. So why? Yeah.
The FBI critically also refused to allow NTSB investigators to interview eyewitnesses for months after the crash. FBI interviews and recording methods were, per NTSB standards, neither thorough nor reliable
Hmm.
on it because they didn't know the right questions to ask. They're not aviation experts
Right.
on that. The cost to the investigation in terms of preserving evidence and getting thorough eyewitness accounts was incalculable. From the beginning to the end of the FBI's participation in the Flight 800 investigation, the NTSB consistently violated previously mentioned regulations pertaining to continuing its own investigation according to normal NTSB procedures and working with the FBI to ensure that evidence of the criminal act was properly preserved. It
Hmm.
didn't go that way at all.
No.
That's the way that it's supposed to happen, all right? That's the way that it's set up. But the FBI, took charge and basically booted the NTSB right out.
Right.
Right, the NTSB assembled a team of investigators not previously associated with the original investigation to consider the petition to reopen the case. This week, the NTSB put forward an official response as a result of the investigation. Um, anyway, let's see what else we got here.
But again, it's amazing that all this information is now coming out after the anniversary just a short time ago.
Yeah,
And
I got something to
here's
read
all
here.
this information coming out.
This is from Tom Fitton um, from Judicial Watch. And again, I mean, Google it and watch the interview with Al Francis, and then just put in, when you get to Judicial Watch, go to search and just put in TWA Flight 800, and quite a few things will come up, that are just happening. Through a Freedom of Information Act investigation, Judicial Watch obtained more than 400 pages of FBI records, including a striking communication sent just days after the disaster. This is the biggest news yet coming up. The document states plainly that FBI headquarters is in receipt of faxes generated from Egypt with a terrorist group claiming credit for blowing the plane up.
There you go.
Right? That was suppressed for 30 years.
Yeah. And you
Okay.
stood behind what you believed.
For the destruction of the aircraft, this was not a rumor or a retrospective theory. It was an internal FBI communication distributed with immediate priority in the earliest phase of the investigation.
Hmm.
For decades, Americans have been told that there was no credible evidence of terrorism. Why, Ed? What was going to happen 3 days after that?
Yeah.
The
Wasn't
Olympics.
wasn't the Olympics coming up?
The
Yeah.
Olympics. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And so President Bill Clinton just
Yep.
squashed this whole thing.
Right.
Just a big cover up. You
Yeah.
don't want to show the world that we got terrorism in the United States.
Right. And
Doesn't
now,
happen.
right.
We're
And
thinking that
now,
the first time out was, at 9/11, you know,
and you're a few days before the Olympics, and all of a sudden the plane goes down and suspected terrorism. Who's
a
going to the
terrorist group
Olympics?
out of Egypt, out of
Right.
Cairo,
Right. Who's going
claimed
to the Olympics?
responsibility for it right away,
Right.
and the
Right.
FBI suppressed that information. Media never reported anything.
Right.
Right. It was just
Right.
right.
But who would be going to the Olympics? Right. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it. The Olympics would have been a bust.
Yet the FBI's own records show that the claims of responsibility from overseas were received and logged in real time. The question is not whether every such claim was legitimate, but whether these leads were fully pursued and why the public was never meaningfully informed about them. The same records raise another uncomfortable point. Internal FBI material referred a wealth of evidence pointing to a missile strike. All right. A
Right.
wealth of evidence. I mean, my buddy at Army Intelligence was telling me that, that day,
Yeah.
what was going on, and he's like, man, we believe it was a missile strike.
Yeah.
He
Because we
had to,
lost because
he
we
had to leave
lost
the
a couple
Pentagon and give
Stinger
me a call
missiles.
from outside the Pentagon. But
Yeah.
anyway, um, the assessment aligns with what hundreds of eyewitnesses reported: streaks of light rising from the surface toward the aircraft moments before the explosion. In total, 755 witnesses' accounts were gathered, including 183 describing such a streak. All right, so you can see from the other report where it only showed a handful. This has got 183,
Right.
with many placing its origin near the horizon. These accounts were effectively sidelined, never tested through full public scrutiny. Instead, the government settled on a theory centered on a catastrophic fuel tank explosion.
Right.
All right, we've worked with a lot of big high profile cases over the years. All right,
Correct.
and I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. Other than the Costa Concordia in Italy, I don't ever recall a high profile case where politicians or government officials did not lie to the public.
Correct.
Why? I just don't get it.
Right.
It's like we don't have big boy pants to, be able to handle the information on it, or maybe they got some involvement, on their end. Anyway,
Or they
so
just don't want to jeopardize who they are.
yeah,
Whether they're
so they come up with this whole center fuel tank, and in my opinion, just absolute bullshit, just period. All
yeah.
right. Because another thing is, how many 747s? You just had a catastrophic explosion, right? Not sure what it is yet, et cetera. But no 747s were grounded,
Right.
right? The next day at the gate, Was another 747 flight 800 heading toward Paris.
Yeah.
All right. Wasn't grounded
Right.
on it. There wasn't any immediate, even after they came up with this faulty wiring. It wasn't this whole ground thing and check out all the wiring and rewire, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Didn't happen.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Because I mean,
but
that happens automatically.
I tell you, I've taken so much crap over 30 years for my viewpoint on this, and to see this actually come into fruition, it just it makes my heart warm knowing that, you know, the the victims deserve the truth.
Right.
You know, the
The
families of the
families.
victims
Yep.
deserve the truth.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, to show disrespect to the victims like this is just it's just inconceivable to me. It
Well,
just pisses me off.
yeah. Well, you're right, and it's not just the victims. It's the entire public. Why are we lied to?
Yeah,
Right? It's the victims for sure, because they suffered through all this and for months waiting for you know closure. But
all the families, you
all
mean?
yeah, all the
Yeah,
families,
I'll be honest with you, Ed. You know, we're finding bits and pieces. You know, I
right.
mean, lobsters and crabs are just half-eaten bodies, and I mean, it was a nightmare.
Yeah,
Just an absolute nightmare. You can imagine, especially 2.5 miles. You know, low visibility, deep waters. You know, limited bottom times.
right.
Just goes on and on and on. But it's not good. Here's something else too, equally troubling: the unusual role played by the CIA. See, I knew those bastards were involved in this somehow, right? Which inserted itself into the public narrative by producing a televised animation intended to explain any eyewitness observations. They went around and showed this to everybody and said, "This is what really happened." You know, and basically it's a cartoon that they've got in the air with the center fuel tank and the cockpit falling off, and why would that happen?
Right.
Anyway, the agency has no formal role in aviation accident investigations, yet it helped shape the public understanding of what occurred. Judicial Watch is still seeking full transparency on that involvement through ongoing litigation described in its lawsuit for related records. So you got to sue these agencies in order to get public information,
Yeah.
right? I mean, this information is public. These are public documents,
Yeah.
all right, that are available to, for the public. And they end up having to sue them, and then it comes in and it's all redacted, and everything's blacked out, and
Blacked out. Right.
it's just crazy. Questions also persist about physical evidence recovered from the wreckage. Traces of explosive materials were attributed to a supposed K9 training exercise. That explanation lacks documentation, conflicts with the aircraft's actual movements, and fails basic scrutiny. It appears less like a definitive finding and more like a convenient way to dismiss contradictory evidence.
Mhm.
So, the K9 didn't have a hit, so therefore
No. Yep.
there's no evidence. All right. The American people understand that investigations are complex and that early leads do not always pan out, but they also expect honesty.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what I was saying before. Why is the public lied to, or why is there a cover up?
The newly uncovered FBI document referencing um, claims of responsibility from Cairo was never part of the public story. Neither was the internal acknowledgement of evidence consistent with a missile strike.
Hmm.
After 3 decades, the answer is not to defend a contested narrative. The answer is transparency,
Right.
right? And
So
basically, that's what it is.
so do you have a bunch of other things that you want to cover,
As
or
far as the
as far as this whole thing? Because we're getting into some time here.
no,
Uh, is
I think that's about it. As far as that, I mean, there's still going to be more to report.
right.
As soon as the rest of these papers are gone through, the documentations and stuff. And, if we can ever get a hold of Tom Fitton ever gets a hold of that CIA paperwork. And again, check out Judicial Watch. Just Google it and go to YouTube and you can see the videos on it, or you can go to their website and just, search everything for TWA Flight 800.
Yeah.
There's some great stuff. That interview with Al Francis, Captain Al Francis, is really good, because he was actually at the hangar, during reassembly on
Okay.
it, and
Yeah.
he was a key member there.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I think Al's um, also witnessed the FBI loading aircraft parts onto different transport vehicles
Oh, right.
and heading off. And I think he also witnessed them power washing um, some of the
Parts.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Well,
Now the
I
power
just,
washing part was before it went in to get assembled.
right.
They're power washing it. They're redamaging the aircraft and then power washing it so there's no residue
Right.
on it,
Right.
so they can come up with this whole electrical ridiculous story.
So I just want to point out that your comment about the CIA, you know, in case you and I aren't around,
Yeah, I have no suicidal thoughts. By the
somebody,
way,
yeah, me either. So,
I don't
oh,
want to
wait a
get I
minute.
don't want to get Hillaryized.
Wait a minute. I just saw someone towards your back door, and I
Yeah,
think they're wearing hoods
yeah.
or something. So,
But
um,
Jesus.
yeah, it's amazing.
So 30 years later, I'm happy to finally see some vindication, um, on this for the victims,
Yeah,
because
victims and
they
the
deserve
families.
better. You
Yep,
know,
that's for
they
sure.
deserve better.
Yep,
We've done a lot of recoveries over the years, Ed. We've done a lot of body recoveries over the years, and we always, always, always handle the victims with the utmost respect and honor.
correct.
Always.
Yep,
One of the things that I always did, and always do, and trained our staff to do was, you talk to the people down there,
right.
and let them know that you're there to help, and that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is no place for you. You don't want to, let's get you back to your family so they can have
Right.
closure on this.
Exactly.
You handle the victims carefully, you handle them with respect, you handle them with honor.
Yep.
Um, even when it got down to, months later, and it's just, you're looking for bits and pieces, and it's still with the utmost respect and honor
Right.
that we would do that with. But
100%.
anyway, so I hope that shine some light on this 30-year-old story. But
On this 30-year-old tragedy. Yeah.
yeah, but you were what? You were only about 72 back then, right?
Well, I
30
think,
years ago.
yeah, how many years? 30 years. Yeah, I was in my,
My
I
beard
think,
wasn't white.
and I
neither was
had
my
hair,
neither was my hair.
and I had hair.
And you had hair. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All right.
But
Well, when we get some more information, I'm sure you will let everybody know, and we'll get that out there. And
yeah, even if we can have some just quick updates, on
yep.
it,
Yep.
just to keep people informed.
Yep. All
But
right.
sounds good.
Well, thanks very much.
Yep.
Uh,
Judicial Watch. If you're watching us, just keep up the good work, man. Tom, you're
yeah.
doing a great job.
Yep. Check. And if others are watching, go ahead and go to Judicial Watch and check that out as well. So,
Hank Hughes, thank you for trying to get this case reopened. And Al Francis, we really appreciate your interview with Judicial Watch. That certainly brought a lot of things to light.
yep.
But anyway, thank you, everybody. Once
Thank
again, I'm
you.
Senior Investigator Rich Morin at Underwater CSI International,
And I'm Senior Investigator Ed Myron. Thanks very much.
and have a good night.
Take care.